Hey everybody, in this tutorial just a quick demo of using the prepare method to send values from one view controller to another. So in the app, I just want to embed the view controller into a navigation controller, and then we'll add a second view controller. And basically all I'm going to do is have the user enter a name and then display it on the second view controller. So let's select the view controller and then editor, embed in navigation controller. And let's add a second a second view controller. And so on the first view controller, we want, I guess we want a label for name, and we'll just constrain it to the top and auto resize the width. Center align it, let's make it a little larger font there. And I guess I'll bold it. And then let's add some text input. I'm going to keep it in the caps. And do the same thing, just change the font size and center align it, let some constraints to the top, and auto resize the width again. Whoop. And let's add a border, and then let's add a button, and we'll use this button as a way to segue, and I'm just going to constrain this one to the bottom. Let's change the font and display name. And this will be our segue, so I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to click and drag onto our next view controller. And I want a segue type show. Okay, on our second view controller, all we're going to have is the name. So I'm just going to add a label. Just put it in the center here, and let's change the font size again, make it bold. And that's it. So this, all we're going to do is enter a name. We're going to use this prepare method to instantiate an instance of our second view controller. And we'll have a string property inside of this class. And we'll take the string, we'll pass this this input value to a string property in our second scene, and then inside of, we can do it inside of view did load or view will appear, and assign that value to this labels text property. So a few things we need to do. Set up on the storyboard is almost done. We need to create outlets. So we need an outlet for this input box, this text field. We need an outlet for this label, and we should probably create separate view controllers. So I'll use this first view controller, I guess. I'll just use it as is for our scene 1. and probably be a good idea to change the name, but I'll just leave it as is now. And then let's do a display name view controller for the second scene. So let's jump into storyboard again, and we'll go to that second scene, click on the view controller, and let's set this to display name view controller. Okay, so now we've got our first scene is set to view controller as the view controller, and then our second view controller, or second scene is configured to use display name view controller. Okay, so inside of view controller we need an outlet for that text field. So let's create input name, and it's going to be UI text field, and we know it's not going to be nil, so we'll use a question mark. And then inside of display name view controller we need an outlet for the label, so it's going to be and in addition to that, we're also going to add just a simple text property, and I'll just call it display name. Its type is string, and Xcode is going to complain if we don't give it a default value there. So we'll give it a default value of an empty string. I'm going to rename it here so it's spelled right. Display name. So again, we need to go connect this outlet. So let's jump to the storyboard and go to our second scene. I'm going to right click on the view controller button, and I'm going to drag the connector for display name label to our label for displaying the name, and I'm going to go to scene 1, and I'm going to connect this text UI text field. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to input name and drag it down to the UI text field. So now we have our outlets connected, and we have a variable also set up inside of our second class, our display name view controller class. So we're going to collect this value, and then when someone clicks on the button to fire off the segue, we want to pass before we do that, we want to create an instance of this class. We're going to create a display name view controller object, and we want to assign a value to this display name property. Then inside of this class, when it loads, we could use view did load. I like to use view will appear, so we know it loads before the view is actually presented on the phone screen. We're going to take this display name and assign it to the text property for the display name label on the screen. Okay, so first things first, let's jump over to view controller and let's create our prepare method. And we're going to select this one, which is prepare for the segue. And inside of this code, inside of our prepare, we're going to create a display name view controller, and I used a lowercase d on purpose because I don't want to use the actual name of the class. And we're gonna use it as our segue destination. So segue.destination is what we're creating, and we're going to cast it to our display name view controller. So basically what we're doing is we're forcing that segue to create a new presentation on the screen using this custom class view controller that we created called display name view controller. And we need to guard it just in case we can't create that. So we'll just do a return, and what doesn't it like? Nope, that's not what we will do. Guard, let display name view controller equals segue.destination as display name view controller, else return. I like that code. Let's do this then. After, I'm gonna ignore that for a second. After that, we're gonna use this class, this display name view controller, and we're gonna set this, you saw it there, display name property, and we're gonna set that to whatever is currently inside of our input box, which is input name dot text, and probably need to protect ourselves there. Okay, so that previous message was, it was saying, well, we didn't actually use display name view controller later on, so let's change it to an underscore. Oh, and we need to wrap the entire thing, I guess, with an exclamation mark. It's worried about a nil value. Not going to affect anything when we actually run the code. Okay, so we've got display name view controller, and this is that class that we created, this display name view controller. It's actually an object of that, and display name is that custom property, that string property that we added to the class. So what we're doing is we're creating this second view controller with a property that has a value already assigned. It's almost like we're, calling a constructor method for the next view that's going to load when someone clicks on when someone activates a segue. Okay, in the second class then, in the second scene, we need to take this display name, which has the value that was passed from our initial scene, and we need to assign it to this display name label. So we could do it in view, didn't load, I'm going to do it in view will appear. And what we're going to do is we're going to just take this display name label dot text, and we're going to assign the value of display name. So this is the value that was passed, and we're going to assign it then to our connected outlet. So let's go ahead and run it. So we should be able to enter a name, click display name, and this is where it calls the prepare method, grabs this value, instantiates a class for our second scene, instantiates an object for our second scene, and then assigns this value to that string property that we set up. Then view will appear fires off, and it takes the property and assigns a value to the connected label. That's it. So just an easy way to take a value and pass it from one view controller to another. And that's it.